The PK-PSD9 is the Burst SMG that was recently added to Modern Warfare Remastered, and this is going to be like a breakdown of the weapon stats and the uses that I think that this weapon could have in the game. I'm going to start this video off by saying I don't think this weapon is very good and I don't think it's worth it. There's better options in the SMG category outside of the novelty of this being a new weapon and it being unique because it's a Burst SMG and it's the only one in the game. I don't really think there's much of a use like practically for this weapon as far as like it being effective in game. Starting off with the damage and ranges. With stopping power, it'll be a 2-hit kill up to 16.5 meters. That's with stopping power. Without stopping power, it'll be a 3-hit up to that range. And if you have silencer and stopping power, it'll be a 2-hit up to 10.6 meters. 2-hit meaning 2 of the shots from the burst hitting. So if you want your burst weapon to be consistent, you want it to kill in less shots than the actual entire burst because it can be difficult to hit the entire burst at some points in time. With stopping power, it'll be a 3-hit up to 22.2 meters. And without stopping power, it'll be a 4-hit up to that range. And then it's a 4 or 5 hit from then on, just based on if you have stopping power or not. I think stopping power is definitely the way to go for this weapon, just because it's going to make you have much more like consistent one burst kills, and the fire rate of this weapon is not ideal. Even with double tap, it's not ideal. So I would think stopping power is the way to go. This weapon does have decent range, but it's still not better than the MP5 or the 74U, and it has less fire rate than those weapons. So I just really don't think there's any reason to use this gun. If this gun was to be effective, I think it would be based solely on like having a very good range or very high damage. The fact that it doesn't even outclass the other SMGs in damage and it also doesn't outclass them on fire rate just really leaves me wondering what this gun is supposed to be used for. Its fire rate is 604 RPM, while the MP5 and the 74U is 800 RPM, so it's considerably lower than that, and that's just the fire rate of the bullets coming out from the burst. That doesn't factor in burst delay, I don't believe. So this gun is far behind those other two like top tier SMGs. So I would just consider this gun weak. Like its damage is like its range is okay, but it's also very slow. So I just, like I said, it doesn't make sense to me. If you put on double tap, it'll have a 728 RPM, and I believe this will also help with the burst delay. But you're giving up a lot of your damage there, and you're just really like deciding that okay, I'm gonna spam this weapon a lot, and that's how I'm gonna get my kills. But if you wanted to go that route, there's better weapons for that too. So I just, like I've said several times in this video, and I'm going to say it more probably, I just don't see a reason for this weapon to be used just based off the stats alone and how it feels in game. One nice thing about this gun is that it shoots 9mm, so it will share ammo with the proc lot and the M9, so you can put your secondary on and then like get ammo from that. You can start off with a little more ammo if you don't want to use bandolier. It has normal SMG idle sway and hipfire. That's good. I'm surprised they didn't make the idle sway more, and that would have made this weapon even weaker. But the fact that it has normal idle sway is good, and then the hipfire is just good. But this isn't going to be a weapon that I hipfire often just because of the low burst, like the low fire rate just punishes you if you miss shots. So you want to be as accurate as possible. There's a 1.1 headshot multiplier, which means headshots are pretty much always going to be useless. Most of their guns in this game have like a 1.4 headshot multiplier, so this gun having a 1.1 is just disappointing. It is very low recoil, but it also has the lowest in class center speed. Center speed is the rate at which the gun recovers from recoil. So if you take like a time off between your bursts, like say like if you're tap firing an MP5, the center speed is how fast it will return to center and how fast it recovers from recoil. So this one does have the lowest recoil of all the SMGs, but it also has the lowest center speed. I don't think the low center speed really matters that much because it does have the low recoil, but I just thought it was worth mentioning since it was lower than all the other SMGs. I'm personally terrible with this gun's iron sights, so I have to use the red dot, but even if you enjoy using the iron sights and you aren't going to put on the dot sight, I still wouldn't recommend silencer because it just takes such a hit to your 2-hit range, which is going to be your most consistent 1-burst range, so you want that to be as high as possible. So if you really like using the iron sights, I would just go no attachment, just because of how detrimental silencer can be. I like to use stopping power on this weapon, even though double tap does feel much nicer. I just want to play for damage as much as possible, just because of that's the only way I feel like this weapon is going to be good, is if you're consistently getting 1-burst kills. Double tap does feel much nicer, but I think that you're going to be getting more consistent 1-burst kills if you have stopping power. So that's the way to go for me, at least. I think this weapon is best used as a defensive SMG, and that means like you set up in medium range fights, close to medium range fights. You just play more defensive, but within like closer up than you would with an assault rifle. If you wanted to be aggressive, there's much better options. Like I've said several times in this video, this weapon really needs like a very specific playstyle for it to be effective because it's lacking on so many different stats compared to the other ones. The fire rate is not good. You need to hit your shots, which is why I think defensive was generally be the way to go, because you know where your battles are going to be taking place. If you're patrolling a certain area, if you're watching a certain sight line, you know like what battles are going to be important to you. And that's why I think that stopping power is the way to go, just so you can make sure you nail that guy and get the 1-hit kill, or the 1-burst kill rather. like I said, this weapon, just the fire rate being low and the fact that you really need to hit your shots makes it not a very good reactionary weapon, and that's why I like to play defensive. It works in very good in very specific spots, like on Vacant if you're playing in the offices near the C flag and the enemy has a C flag. If you're playing that little connector hallway that they have to come through, that would be good. And then also on Crossfire, I believe the A site, there's a building they have to come through to get to B, and that's a good spot to play with it as well. But in these spots it works well, like I'm performing well with the weapon, but I don't think this is exceptionally well, and it's nothing I couldn't do with the MP5, and there's more I could do with the MP5. So I'm pretty much always gonna pick the MP5 over this weapon, except for like the novelty of it being new and people want to see it in a video. It's probably good in hardcore. I don't personally play hardcore, but if you're someone who enjoys playing hardcore with a submachine gun, I feel like this one could be ideal. You could get away with using double tap and probably still get a lot of consistent one burst kills, and it has very low recoil, acceptable damage, and it feels much better with double tap. You don't need stopping power in hardcore. So I think if you are a hardcore player, this could be a good SMG for you, especially because of the really low recoil, and it's pretty much always going to be a one burst in hardcore, and you could get away with double tap spamming the burst faster. So I almost feel like this weapon could be very good in hardcore, but I don't play it personally. Let me know what you think. If you're a hardcore player, comment that down below and tell me what you think of this SMG. But that's going to do it for this video. Overall, I don't think this weapon is worth it. It is very niche uses, but in those niche uses, you could get away with the MP5 and the 74U just fine. So that's why I don't really think this weapon is useful. There's nothing that really separates it from the SMGs, the other SMGs, aside from the recoil, which isn't that big of a deal to me because I'm just fine with the MP5's recoil. Like I said, that's it for this video. Please like it if you enjoyed it and subscribe for future videos.